Using Facebook, was making a post, and it included the GPS locations of their house in the Facebook page. And I know that that person wasn't aware that they were actually given the location of where they're living in a very sensitive context. So there's the question of what's the user experience and the impact on their rights that internet companies are bringing for them. So I think a forum like this, it's an opportunity to promote better standards for all users so that activists who don't have the technical expertise can also be better protected.
Thank you. Gita, your organization is on the ground working very closely on similar issues. Can you talk a little bit about how CREA is using ICT to link its work, efforts, and advocacy to the channels that are traditionally left out in your context?
So thanks for having me here. It's quite unusual. And I think that's the first thing I would say about a feminist or human rights organization working on ICT. I don't know if we work on ICT, we have to work on ICT to some extent because it's, you have a love-hate relationship. When it works for you, you love it. When it doesn't work for you, you hate it. But I think the most important thing for CREA is dealing at 3 levels. One is reach, because obviously it helps us to amplify our messages across borders, across communities. On the other hand, in a country like India, we have only 19% of people that have access, and about 900 million people subscribe to dumb phones and not necessarily the internet that we are thinking about. Our idea of the internet and the idea of the internet in its larger definition is what, there's big difference in that. I think integration, how do we get rights people to work with tech better, and how do we get tech people to work with rights better? I mean, that's something we've had to deal with. The capacity issue is a big one. And I think that when you work and when you have the word sexuality in your mission statement, it raises a lot of barriers in terms of there are invisible barriers and visible barriers that we've had to deal with. And some of the visible barriers, I think, you probably have talked about a lot in terms of access and the functional aspects of the internet. But I think the invisible barriers, whenever there's a liberatory idea or tool that could be used to amplify messages, so around sexuality, there is this immediate assumption that it will be used to ruin women, girls, promiscuity, the traditional norms that exist around anything that has the power of a liberatory tool as such. And I think the word all, we challenge the word all, and a lot of our work on ICTs in a very deep way came because we ourselves couldn't address a number of people that we said we wanted to address, especially people with disabilities. Our offices were not accessible physically. We couldn't bring a lot of people with disabilities into our training workshops. So that actually led us first to really explore the internet as a platform and as a tool. So even in the word all, I think there's a hierarchy in terms of who's the all, what's the internet, and how can we keep questioning that both at the individual level, but also at the structural level, because in India we have a lot of laws that also prevent the all from getting access. And so we're struggling with that as an organization. We have lots of creative projects in the last 3 years, but it's only in the last 3 years where we've kind of gone in, but because we see that we can manage. We run an online institute on disability and sexuality, and that's global. And I think that's one of the most creative things we've done to address some of our issues.